All right. Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning from wherever you're watching tonight's program. This is, believe it or not, our seventh lesson in the Esalen series. It just seems like it's going by way too quickly. Tonight's lesson is going to take place on the belly. So if you don't have a bath towel handy, some of you might appreciate this. And so what you do is you just take the bath towel, you fold it in half and fold it again into thirds. And so it becomes like a wide band. And we'll be placing this wide band, if you want, underneath your pelvis, below your belly button. So you'll actually lie on this. Sometimes when there's an extended time of laying on the belly, there can be some accumulated tension that happens in the back. So this allows you to bring the floor. Remember, we've talked about our self-care strategies. When we start to bring the floor up to us, we begin to let the pelvis sit on the floor in a different way. And so therefore, the pelvis doesn't have to crimp or extend or accumulate the tension in the low back, because the weight of the pelvis as the floor is raised allows you to then distribute the movement proportionally rather than getting it trapped at that lumbar sacral junction. Perfect. So we're going to start the lesson in standing. So come to stand. As you know, I want to try and find some folks who might be demonstrating some of the movement. So if you do not want to be seen on camera, please just go ahead and turn your video feed off. Or if, in case my voice becomes either spotty, gummy, or not able to hear, then you might want to turn that video feed off. And so I'm just going to add a couple of people to the spotlight. So you're standing there with feet side by side. You choose the distance. And without looking at your feet, I would like you to draw a horizontal line from one foot to the other, and maybe from one heel to the other, that place where your inside ankle bone, if you just drop down into your heel and then draw it across to the other. So it's a horizontal line from right to left or left to right. And find the midpoint, what you would believe to be the midpoint of that horizontal line. Of course, it's, so you're not looking, just think of what it would be. Good. Now, I want you to look down and see if you're accurate. All right. All right, look forward again. Close your eyes. I want you to find your gluteal cleft. You remember what your gluteal cleft is? That fancy term we call for your buttock crack, or the groove between your buttocks. And then draw your awareness to your pubic bone, the mid part of your pubic bone. The pubic bone's in front. The gluteal cleft is on the back side. Now, place one hand on the pubic bone and one hand on your gluteal cleft. And in your mind, if you were to bring those 2 points together, they would find a center within your pelvis. And can you, from that centered place, drop a vertical line down to the ground? And where does that vertical line intersect the horizontal line between the 2 feet? Is it the same midpoint that you found just a moment ago? Or is it to the right or to the left of that midpoint? Let your hands go back to your side. With your left index finger, could you just spontaneously touch the center of your belly button? You only get one try, so don't worry if you miss it. Just find it. See if you land in the center. Some people will, some people don't. Okay, let it go. With the left index finger, could you touch the middle point of your sternum? That's your breastbone, your chest, where your ribs connect. Where do you think that is? The middle point. Mhm. Good. Let that go. And now with your right index finger, could you touch the top of your head in the center, on your crown, in that vertex? And can you imagine dropping a line down from that vertex through the midpoint of your sternum, through the middle point where your gluteal cleft and your pubic bone were, that center, drop it all the way down to the floor. And where does that vertical line intersect your horizontal line between the 2 feet? Mm, okay, let it go. Now come to lie on your back. We'll start off first sensing those 5 cardinal lines. So you can begin to appreciate these cardinal lines continue to play a role throughout the whole Esalen series. You're lying on your back. Just the distance or the space of your arm cardinal lines to your torso. Mhm. Good. And how about the space between the leg cardinal lines? What's the distance that you naturally take? And here, of course, we could draw a horizontal line between your right heel and your left heel. Mhm. And that horizontal line would also have a midpoint, wouldn't it? Can you imagine where it would be? All right. Allow yourself to roll over onto your front side of your torso, your abdomen, your chest, and turn your face to the left. And you can organize your hands so that you stack your right hand on top of the left. Now, for some of you, as you lie there on your belly, you might find the need to put that towel underneath the lower abdomen into the front of the pelvis. If you don't need it, it's just fine. But know that you can take it out, you can place it in whenever you like. So, again, depending on your comfort level in turning your head, you might mean for some of you that you can place your right ear on the back of your right hand. For some of you, that's available. But for some of us, it may be only your cheekbone or the right side near your eyebrow or the right on the outside edge of your right eye. So again, it's just whatever is more or less comfort for you. Now, you can sense your heels, your legs are long, your heels coming out from your sit bones. What I'd like you to do is I'd like to have a little wider width, if you will, between your legs, as though that the knees, another way of saying it, maybe in your judgment, is the knees are a little wider than your pelvis, a little wider. And bend both knees. Bend both knees so that the soles of the feet are pointing up or orientated in the direction of the ceiling, more or less 90 degrees. So it doesn't take a lot of effort to hold the legs up in the air. If it feels like it does, then you need to bring your heels a little closer to your sit bones. All right. Now, keeping this configuration with your knees bent like this, can you begin to tilt both legs to your right and then back to the middle? So both legs are moving at the same rate to the right and back to the middle. Do this a few times. Start to see where you feel the tilt in your torso from your gluteal cleft all the way up to the back of your head, to the vertex of your head. This little simple tilt. A lot of people, as they start to tilt their legs to the right, sometimes they let their knees straighten or they lose that bend. So in order for you to tell the difference, if you're losing the bend, intentionally straighten your legs a little bit so your feet go towards the floor as you're tilting the feet to the left. Gives you a very different configuration, a different movement pattern through the vertical cardinal line. Yeah. So during this lesson, it's going to be real important to keep the feet orientated more or less moving across the ceiling. That's right, like you're painting the soles of the feet across the ceiling. And maybe this image might be helpful. What if I were to place an imaginary stick between the right heel and the left heel, between the feet? So the stick's not going to fall out. You'll be safe. It doesn't fall out. And keep the stick between the two feet so that the distance between the feet doesn't change. Ah, yeah. For some of you, that seemed to help carry and tilt the feet to the right and then back to the beginning, right to the middle. And as you keep your stick between your feet, tilting to the right and then returning back to the middle, just start to get a sense how that changes the pressure across your torso, across your ribs, your pelvis. What parts of the pelvis are lifting and coming away from the floor? Could you track your gluteal cleft? hmm Good. Now, let that go and release your stick and release the legs long. So, we're going to be returning to this movement quite often during the lesson tonight. So, just because I'm leading the lesson doesn't mean that overrules what it is that you might need. For some of you, you may need to turn onto your side and rest a moment and then return back to the movement. That's just fine. So come back to that same position before, the space between the legs, the knees a little wider than the pelvis, the knees bent more or less to 90 degrees, the face looking to the left, right hand on left. Mhm. With your stick in between the legs, just a couple of times, again, tilt the knees to the right and then return back to the starting position. Mhm. Now, the next time you find your feet to the right, I want you to stay there, the legs to the right. Let them stay there in that position and begin to raise the left elbow a little way from the floor. Just the left elbow. It's like I could slide my hand underneath your left elbow and then you lower it back down. So several times, raise and lower the left elbow. Your feet are off to the right. That's right. All right. Let the elbow go. And a couple of times, let's bring the feet right back to the center. And now tilt the feet to the right and back to the center again and see if that had any impact on the pelvis rolling across your towel roll, the pubic bone changing its relationship to the ground. What about in between the shoulder blades? Where is the turn, the rolling happening? Good. Now lower the feet, rest the legs long. Place your head however you like that allows you for the best sense of comfort. Mhm. Okay. Bend the knees up again, the feet standing toward the ceiling. The face is still orientated to the left. Right hand on top of left, face turned to the left. And keeping your imaginary stick between the 2 feet, all right? Begin to slowly tilt the legs to the left and then back to its original starting point. To the left this time. Keeping your stick in place, careful not to drop the imaginary stick, and see if this tilting or turning of the spine is different coming up from your tailbone, through the gluteal cleft, through your spine, all the way through your neck. Is it different tilting the leg to the left than it was to the right? Mhm. Track that pressure across the front of the torso, how it changes, parts of you sinking into the floor, parts of you lifting. And the next time you find your legs tilted to the left, stay there. Just hang out there a little bit. Yeah. Since this link of your spine that goes from that tailbone through the cleft, it's not a straight line, is it? Since it all the way through the lumbar spine, the thoracic spine, that place between your shoulder blades. Now, from this place here, begin to slowly lift the left elbow from the floor. hmm Letting the left elbow lift and lower several times. The feet, the legs are off tilted to the left. hmm Now leave the left elbow on the floor and lift the right elbow. Very different. The weightedness, the heavy, the ease of being able to lift. Feel how the lifting of that right elbow has an impact on the tilt of the legs, the angle of the legs. Can you keep your feet more or less towards the ceiling? Mm-hmm. Good. Let the left elbow go. Bring your feet back, the legs back toward the middle. hmm And keeping your imaginary stick between your feet just a couple of times. Tilt the legs once to the right and then once to the left. And can you go slow? Yeah. Can you go slow enough that you can begin to track and maybe even equalize this sensation of the tilting of the legs and the impact it has on the front of your torso, the right side, the left side? Feeling when the torso starts to sink, like the ribs on the left and then the ribs on the right are lifting, the rolling across the pubic bone, the navel, the belly button, the midpoint of the breastbone, stick between the heels. Good. Now, let that all go. Straighten out your legs. Extend your right hand to the top of your mat and roll to lie on your side. Or just roll right onto your side, or some of you might prefer your back. It's whatever. If you're on your side, you might feel some comfort in drawing your knees up toward your chest, and you can use your right arm as a pillow if you like for your head. Now come back to lying on your front again. Same position, knees a little wider than your hips, right hand over the left, hand on hand, stacking. But this time, I want you to turn your face to the right. For some of you, you might find this is your preferred side. It might be a little easier to rest the head this way or not. Now, certainly, we all come to this lesson today with different levels of spinal mobility. And so, if you're someone that needs to keep the forehead more or less in the midline, then that's fine too. You can place your forehead on the back of your right hand. Bend the knees, orientate the soles of the feet towards the ceiling, and tilt the legs a little to the left and then back to the center a few times. Mhm. See what that carrying your legs to the left feels like, its impact on the turning of the torso, the rolling of the torso. All right. Now, pause and leave your legs in the mid line. Your stick can still be there. Now, I want to draw your attention to your elbows because this is going to be a different movement than we've done before. I want you to draw a line from the tip of your left elbow to the tip of your right elbow. It's one long line, one long stick. Now, very slowly, you're going to lift the right end of your stick. That means you're going to lift the right elbow away from the floor. And as it lifts from the floor, because it's one long stick, the left hand and the left forearm, also they're going to be lifting from the ground. And with this stick, as you start to lift the right end of your wooden stick from the ground, it's going to start to lift, that's right, your torso, your upper torso away from the ground. The feet still stay in the midline. Lifting the upper torso, right hand still stacked on the left, head on the hand, all those parts moving together. That's right, as one. That's it. One stick. So you do this slowly enough so that you can scan your awareness to the torso. How do you use your belly? Does your belly protrude to help you do that? Do you hold your breath? Can you make your breath light and easy enough so that it's really not an issue? Mhm. And then, of course, you can start to track which knee goes into the ground to help support you as you lift the right end of your stick away from the ground. There's one knee that gets a little heavier. Yes, that's correct. And one knee is getting a little lighter, isn't it? hmm The right knee pushing into the ground as the right end of the stick lifts. Right. Now, stop lifting the elbow stick, and just a couple of times you can let your legs tilt to the left and back to the middle and see if this had any impact on your sensation of the front of your torso. And like always, I am saying keep that stick between your feet, right? Keep the stick between your feet. That's better. That's better. Good. All right. Now let that go. Rest with your legs long. Head in any position you like. Now bring your feet to standing again, bending at the knees. The face to right, the right hand stacked on the left. And again, coming back to that stick, the elbow stick, drawing a line from the tip of the left elbow to the tip of the right. And very slowly start to lift the left end of the stick away from the floor. All right. So it's got to be slow. Okay. So find out how you can lift the left end of the stick so that everything hinges, that you feel the weight tipping, dipping, going into the right elbow. I like how you're starting off with a real slight movement because we have to let the body rearrange itself so this movement can become very comfortable. Hmm. Good. Feel how the lifting of the left end of that stick, it elevates, it pulls, it peels away the left upper torso from, that's it, from the ground, and then it returns. Good. Now pause, let that go. Put your elbow stick on the ground. Keep your feet standing, your knees bent, and tilt the legs a couple of times to the right and back to the midline and see how that feels. Mhm. For some of us, after this organization of how we move the upper part of the torso, it starts to provide some information and some change and proportional flexibility that allows the feet to carry to the right, the legs to the right, that there's can be less resistance in the spine and in the pelvis rolling and tilting. And now move past the midline of the tilting of those legs and go all the way over to the left and back and forth very slowly, maintaining your stick between the feet, making the movement simple. And then if you start to decrease the distance traveled from right to left and make it a little bit smaller, you'll start to get a sense that you could make it a little lighter, a little faster. And so that the feet, the legs, like windshield wipers, would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth across the midline, maintaining the distance, maintaining your stick, not dropping the stick, back, forth, back, forth. Breathing, breathing as you do, of course. Yeah. Ah, very good. Now let it go. Let your legs be long. Extend the left hand toward the top of your mat and roll all the way over onto your back. Some of you may even roll off your mat. That's just fine. And you'll roll off your towel if it was underneath your belly. You can move it off to the side. And since your 5 cardinal lines now, the space between the arms and the torso, the space between the legs, and what your vertical cardinal line, how it is resting. And now in your mind again, draw the horizontal line from the left heel to the right heel to the left heel. So you trace that horizontal line. Where's the midpoint, the middle point between the heels? And now draw your attention to your chest, your sternum, that very long bone that comes from the dip of your throat all the way down to where your soft abdomen is. It's a vertical line. It's a vertical sternum, the chest. Where's the middle point of your sternum, of your chest? And now bring your attention to the top of your head, the vertex. Where is the midpoint of your head? Right there on top of your head. Now, gradually start to move your awareness from the middle part, the top of your head, and start now to draw this line that allows you to come between your eyebrows, through your middle of your forehead, through your eyebrows, through the nose, the lips, the chin, the throat, the top of the sternum, the middle of the sternum, the end of the sternum, and that next landmark, that belly button. Mhm. Can you sense where the belly button is? And without looking, can you just use one finger, one index finger, and touch the center of your belly button? Go there now, very quickly. See if you can find it, or just notice where you land, and then bring it back to your hand. Sometimes most people find it very difficult actually to sense where the center of the belly button is. They think they know, but then they start to move, and then all of a sudden it was, oh, that's where it is. Mhm. Now, think of that midpoint between the heels again. Keeping that imaginary stick between the heels, can you scoot or lift both legs together just a little so that they're moving to the right of the center of that, of you? Uh-huh. So it's like both heels, both sticks, excuse me, your stick moves both heels to the right of your vertical cardinal line. That's another way of saying that. So they move together as a team. So as you're lying there, it feels as though you may be a little crooked. Mhm. That's right. Now, come back to that vertex of the head, that midpoint of the head on top of the skull, and begin to move the head off to the right, just far enough so that the midpoint of the head, if I were to draw a vertical line down toward the midpoint of your heels, would be stacking on top of one another. Mhm. It looks as though that your whole shape of your body looks like a kind of a backwards C. Mhm. Now keep the head right where it is. I want you to scoot the legs back to where they were originally so that the midpoint of the heels is underneath the gluteal cleft, the pubic bone, it's underneath the sternum, whatever point of reference you take it. Mhm. And then now move the top of the head, the vertex of the head, move it back in alignment. And see if the midpoint of the head and the midpoint of the heels, see if that is aligning. Mhm. All right. Now, keeping that same imaginary stick between both heels, this time we're going to scoot the stick, both heels, the midpoint of the line between the heels. Scoot them both, scoot, Scoot both legs to the left. So it's like you're carrying the midpoint between the heels to the left. That's right. Stay there. Move the top of the head to the right. Move it to the right, just like we did before. So your feet midpoint is off to the left and the midpoint of the head is off to the right. Now, scoot your legs, bring your midpoint of your heels back to the middle. See if you can find that this midline, that's it, comes back to the middle. And then now move the vertex of the head back to its middle. And see if you can pass that imaginary vertical line through the vertex of the head to the midpoint of the heels. Now, move the vertex of the head to the left. Mhm. And then now take your stick between your heels and move the midpoint between the heels also to the left. And you want to see if the midpoint of the heels and the midpoint of the vertex of the head, if you drop that vertical line straight down, would they be on top of one another? Again, the torso making this C shape kind of motion. This is often the posture that gets spontaneously stimulated to help right you up if you start to fall. Mhm. Right now, your base of support and the center of mass and the head, if you were standing, have a different relationship. All right. Now bring both legs and your midpoint of the line of the legs back to its center again, right underneath your vertical cardinal line. Mhm. And bring the vertex of the head back into its alignment. And see for yourself, does that feel a little more symmetrical? Does that feel different? What's unusual or maybe what's familiar? So again, sensing the midpoint of the vertex, that top of the head, dropping the line down, the point between the midpoint of your breastbone, your sternum, your belly button, and see if the head and the vertical cardinal line of the spine, does it lie in the same plane? All right. Now let that all go and come now to roll and lie onto your front again. You're going to be lying on your sternum. It's another reference point, right? So we're not just rolling on our stomach, we're rolling on our torso. We're on our sternum. We're on the front parts of our legs. We're on our pubic bone. Your gluteal cleft is free, isn't it? So stretch your arms out along your side. The palms will be down. And if possible, turn your face to the right, to the right. Now, for some reason, if that is uncomfortable, it is okay to rest your forehead on the floor, or you could like tuck the chin down a little bit so that it's towards the throat, so the forehead toward the hairline is on the floor. Or for some of you, you might want to put your chin, but if it's comfortable with your face to the right, that's fine. Bend your knees, feet, your legs are a little wider than the pelvis. And no longer do you have your imaginary stick between your feet, okay? All right, you can just let that go. But you can sense that there is a midline between the right foot and the left foot, between the right heel and the left heel. There is a midpoint between your right knee and your left knee. And you know there's the middle point where your gluteal cleft is, that groove between your buttocks. You know that there's a midpoint of the sacrum. It's that triangle bone that we talked about last week. There's a midpoint there. And of course, there's a midpoint in the lumbar spine as well. So if your face is turned to the right, I want you to turn it now so it's facing the floor. So more or less either the bridge of your nose or the mid forehead is on the floor. So it's as though that you're looking into the floor. Everyone, turn your face into the floor. So you have to adjust your forehead so that you could still breathe and you're not smashing your nose, of course, right? And you begin to sense that there is a middle place, a midpoint between the right shoulder blade and the left shoulder blade. There's a midpoint between your neck, right? The base of your neck. There's a midpoint there at the base of your skull. There's a middle between the back of your skull that separates it right and left. Can you find that? And now, can you let your awareness drop you inside your skull so that you can find this point inside your head that's the middle point of your head? You can use the midpoint of your eyebrows in front as a starting point and come back into the middle part of the head as you drop your same awareness moving forward toward the middle part of the mid eyes. Find the center point of the head. And now drop your awareness back to the center point between your heels, the midpoint between your heels. And keeping your head as it's located right there, begin to move only the right leg, only the right leg, let it move out to the right, and then it comes back towards the midpoint. That's right, the midpoint that exists between the right and left heel. And then you move the right leg only away from that midpoint and then towards the midpoint again. So we're only going to the midpoint and not really touching the left foot. That's another way of saying that. Several times. Now, I want you to stop when you find that you have found the midpoint with that right heel. Stop right there. Now, if you want, you could turn around or sneak a peek to see if that really is the midpoint that you think it is. Mhm. All right. For some of us, it could be a completely different spot. All right. Come back. Now, without moving the torso or the body, I want you to see if you can really let that right leg move even further out to the right. What is the limit of the right leg? Of course, without pain or strain or catch. And then bring it again back to the middle a few times. Of course, the further it goes out, I'm really asking that the knee can still stay bent, right? Good. Now pause there. I want to change the orientation of the head. So instead of having the forehead or near the bridge of the nose or near the hairline, could you put your chin, the end of your chin on the floor? And you don't have to let it be so heavy that it cramps the neck. But I want to keep the chin on the floor so that the head changes its orientation. And a couple times again, return to tilting the right leg only, the right leg only, off to the right. And then as it's coming to the left, but you stop at that midpoint. Mhm. The left leg is just hanging out there to the ceiling so that you're moving the right leg a little to the right, a little to the left, stopping at the midpoint. The chin in the middle. This changes the orientation of how the head and the cervical spine work. hmm Good. And then now reduce the distance traveled. And can you still continue that tilting of the right leg a little right and left? But I need to make it a little faster, a little lighter, a little faster. And can you give yourself permission to not make it really good? Just make it rapid, a little quicker. Yep. That left leg, can you let the left leg stay vertical? Can you let it be more still? That's right. You can still keep that right knee at an angle. Good. Now stop that. We're almost done here. Stay with me just a moment. Let the right foot orientate towards the ceiling. Yeah, feet. There you go. Now, I would like you to point and flex the right foot a number of times. So you point the toes towards the ceiling and then you point them towards the ground or the floor. So see if you can do that without changing the angle of the knee or letting the knee or the foot fall out. And I see if you can track that space. Go slow enough so you can track the space in front of the ankle, how it opens and closes. Open, close, open, close. So it's not just pointing the foot. Feel that's better. Different quality. How about a little quicker? hmm May get a little bit discombobulated, but you can change the speed of that. hmm Now, let the foot stop. Let it rest somewhere in the middle, whether it's neither flexed or pointed. And tilt again, only the right leg a couple of times as before, off to the right as far as it can go, back to the midline, and see where the midpoint between the foot, see if the midpoint between the knees, or the midpoint between the heels, is it the same or is it different? hmm Now stop the moving of the leg and let yourself lie on your side and take a good rest. This is an incredible lesson for someone who has had a total hip replacement or changes in their inability to transfer their center of mass across the midline. Or they, put it simply, I guess, is they just don't feel as stable on one leg as they do on the other. Now, roll over onto your front again. And I'm going to let you choose whatever you like to position your arms either along your side. You can stack your hands either right on left or left on right. It's all good. You can have your towel underneath your pelvis or not. It's your choice to either put your chin or your forehead on the floor. Bend your knees, the knees just a little wider than the hips. It's not really spread far. It's just a little wider. Now, slowly start to point and flex only the left foot, point and flex. And you know now it's closing and opening the front of the ankle, isn't it? Track that in your mind. Track that in your image so that the opening and closing goes with the point and flexing. Could you also let that go and track this? Feel how your heel moves away from your calf and then it moves towards your calf. Changing the orientation of your thought changes the firing pattern within the nervous system. So it's not just this range of motion of point and flex, right? Bend your ankle. It's about what is opening, what is closing. Good. Now, how about a little faster? Can you just let it all go and just move the foot as though you're waving hi or bye? It doesn't matter whether it's good or not. Good. Now stop. Now start to make a circular movement with that left foot. So the left lower leg stays orientated towards the ceiling, right? And it's not so much of the knee moving, but it's like, can you focus that motion at the ankle joint? That's better. As though that you are drawing a circle. And let your awareness start to track your big toe. That's it, your big toe. Letting the big toe make this motion very clear. Outward, up, inside. That's it. Got to go slow enough so that you can track, because when you're on your belly like this, it's not as it seems, is it? And if you're going slow enough as that big toe is turning, sense how the heel is also moving. This coupled motion of as the toe goes in, the heel goes out, as the big toe goes out, the heel goes in. So it's like you are making that circle from a different perspective. The heel could actually draw the circle. That's a big one. That is really big. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Change the direction. That's it. What's the heel doing? What's the sole of the foot doing, right? See if yourself, you can feel how the big toe and the little toe, are they moving on that same horizontal plane as they make that circle? Good. Now, let's stop for a moment. Keep your legs up in the air. Both soles of your feet are pointing up towards the ceiling, right? Now, I want you to start to tilt the left foot, and I want you to do it in this way. I want you to tilt so that your little toe becomes higher or closer to the ceiling, which means then that the big toe will move towards the floor and then level it out again. The little toe towards the ceiling and the big toe towards the floor. Feel how that changes the shape. Now, pause there in the middle. Now reverse it so that the big toe goes towards the ceiling and the little toe goes toward the floor. It may feel very discombobulating. It's the recovery of when we turn or twist our ankle or rolling on the outside edges of our feet. Now, when you can, I want you to sneak a peek at you doing this movement of letting that big toe move towards the ceiling and the little toe move towards the floor, and that tilting that you're doing. I have to tell you personally, when I was doing this, I could do this without looking, but when I went to look at it, I found it so strange, I couldn't do it. It was very discombobulating for me. So I don't know if that's your story or not, but it's certainly an experience I had. Good. Now you can let your eyes go and come back to making a circle with the foot again, just with that left foot. Reverse it, let it go. Almost finished here. Pause. Make sure both knees are bent. 90 degrees. We're almost ready. Now move that left leg to the left, letting the right leg be still. Just take the left leg out to the left and then move it back toward the midline, towards the right and the left. The left leg as a single flag or a single windshield wiper. Right, left, right, left, right, left. All right. Now let the left leg be standing still and right and move the right leg a little right, left. So that's right. The left leg is still. You're moving the right, left, right. Good. And then go back and try it again on the left leg. And if you make it a little faster, which one moves more? Let's see. The left leg waving like a flag, and then pause the left leg and your right leg moving like a flag. Uh-huh. All right, good. Let it go. Let your legs stretch out. Pause on your belly for just one moment and sense if you can feel that middle between the heels. That midpoint, the midpoint between the knees, the pubic bone. It's quite wide, but there's also a midpoint. Drawing your awareness up through the belly button. Can you sense the middle of it? The midpoint of the sternum, through the throat, through the face, the forehead, the vertex, the top of the head. Continuing your trace down the back of the head to the middle of the skull, the base of the skull, into the neck, falling right through the shoulder blades, all the way down to the spine, through the sacrum, the gluteal cleft, place between the buttock folds, and right down in between the legs and back to the midpoint of the heels. Now, slowly let yourself roll onto the side of your choice. Rest here a moment. Allow your knees to draw up in the direction of your chest. If you have accumulated any unnecessary tension in your spine or anywhere in your body for that matter, you could try this. I want you to withdraw or pull in your abdomen just a little bit, not deeply, but just pull it in just a little bit. And I want you to hold that abdomen in. And what I'd like you to do is as you hold the abdomen in like that, especially that area below the belly button to the breastbone, you can hold that in, right? Yeah. Withdraw, withdrawing it away from your clothing, your waistband, your belt line. And keeping that withdrawn in, I want you to pull in through your nose a very long, extended, slow, low breath of inhale. Holding your abdominal, not letting that lower abdomen expand, because as you draw in that inhale, the sides and the back part of your spine and the soft tissue can expand. The elements, spinal elements of your back. That's right, you can hold it and still holding the abdomen in just a skosh. Let the exhale, let the breath out. And you can try that one more time, pulling in the abdomen, thinking the fullness of your breath, long and low, allowing your internal organs to push out from the inside out any extra tension or contraction of the muscle that's really not needed here anymore. Mhm. Let that go. And when you're ready, I want you to transition through sitting, standing. And I want you to stand for a moment. Hmm. Stand for a moment. That's right. See if you can begin to really appreciate the sense of your entire body in relationship to space, how your entire body stands on this base of support. Since the sensation in your feet in relationship to the floor. And without looking in your mind, draw a line from the left heel to the right heel and the right heel to the left heel. So it's a clear horizontal line. Sense the midpoint of that line. Look down to see if the accuracy of what you sense and what you see is true. And did that point there, the length of your line, change from when you started? Now, since that gluteal cleft, if it's helpful for you to place a hand in the gluteal cleft, that's fine. And the pubic bone, can you sense from front to back that midpoint that exists between the back of your skeleton and the front of your skeleton? And from that middle point, can you drop a vertical line down to the ground? Where does it intersect that horizontal line between the feet? Now, begin to lift only your right heel and your arch off the floor and then put it back down. And if you keep your hands on your gluteal cleft and your pubic bone as you lift the right heel and the arch from the floor, can you get a sense that your vertical line shifts and begins to stack over the inside of the left heel? Your vertical midline begins to shift across that horizontal line between your feet. So it's no longer in the midpoint, is it? Put your right heel down. Now begin to begin to lift your left heel and arch away from the floor and see if your midline, your vertical cardinal line, carries over and stacks across that horizontal line, more or less under your right inside heel bone. And feel, if you start to walk very slowly and start to take some steps slowly, can you start to get a sense that the midline of you begins to cross the midline of the feet? But you feel very stable because you can stack your torso, but not necessarily your head, because the vertex of the head, although maybe going over toward the standing foot, doesn't align vertically straight. That's right. That's right. The vertex of your head stays off a little bit to the side, the opposite side of the foot you're standing on. Very similar to what we were doing on the floor. All right, good. Let it all go. Perfect. Just perfect as is. Good. And then walk around. Begin to bring yourself back to our group, back to this moment, carrying with you your individual experience, of course, but realizing that you are coming back here. That's right. Hmm. Lovely. Taking a moment to appreciate just how good it feels to sit after doing a lesson like that. Good. Now, totally up to you. We like to wrap up the end of a lesson by just taking either some questions or comments or some thoughts that you might have, some aha moments. Certainly not necessary. This is your own experience, and you can just rest right there and you can listen, or you can just go ahead and click off and you can hear what was said on the replay. So if you have any comments that you'd like to make, if you look down at the bottom of the Zoom, you'll see something called reactions. If you click on that, you'll see the ability to raise the hand. And if you'd like, you can do that and it will signal that I can find you on the screen and bring you forward. And I grow more and more comfortable with silence after these lessons. So I want you to appreciate that and that I am not nervous or worried that no one has a comment. So just recognize that. Okay. And having said that, Miss Leslie.
So I have, this stacking over the heel is not new to me at all. But I really felt so clearly that midline in my pelvis right down to that inner ankle bone in a much more clear and kind of a visceral way. I think maybe before I felt my heel bone and then I would try to put my pelvis where I thought, it came from where I knew my heel bone was, but this time it seemed, and I had my hands there, the gluteal cleft and the pubic bone, and everything we did obviously was helpful to do that awareness, but it really was like a full line, it wasn't, I see my heel bone and I feel my pelvis. It really was like the whole line of connection was very clear. So anyway, I teach seniors and balance, and I think this is just so great to share with them and so simple,
Mhm.
kind of. I mean, so thank you.
Yeah,
This was very effective.
you're very welcome. You're very welcome. And it's so sweet to hear you evolve because we've been with each other for a while in different platforms. And to begin to sense the spontaneous movement and organization, the center of mass over the base of support, rather than, oh, where's my feet? And then I come up this way because the central line moving over the feet is how it's done spontaneously. The driver of the whole nervous system is going to be at the pelvis first because it senses, hey, you've got a foot to stand on. And I think there's something really special for seniors being able to find this lateral tilt, but also this tilt. I mean, I know you hear me talk a lot about the ankles and their importance, but I can't tell you enough how important it is and how it brings availability for the pelvis, which is really the hip. You're moving your socket over the ball to make it happen. So it's just,
Mhm.
it excites me.
It excites me too. And I stole your, today I taught balance to seniors and I stole your joke of you move your center of mass, which is your ass. It always gets a good laugh.
It's so true. And
Yeah.
I credit that from um, uh, a senior who was that I was teaching. It was a group of, they were all in their 80s, by the way. They're all, the mid range was 86, I think. And so there were some hearing deficits. And this one lady always thought I was saying, move your ass. And then she goes, oh, your mass. So it kind of brings
Uh,
it home. Kind of brings it.
yeah, it does.
Yeah,
So thank you. I'm enjoying this session so much.
you're welcome. Thank you. Yes, Miss Ellen.
For me, what really tied it all together was at the end when we were lying face down and taking the midline from the heels to the knees to all the way up and then all the way back like an egg. That was that was oh that was like a revelation. And then when we stood up, what I was facing, there's a like a little crystal square that I have. And so the light was hitting it. So I was going back. So my eyes stayed the same, but I could see my body going back and forth. And I could really feel how that center line would shift, but the head would pretty much stay. And and I don't think I've ever felt it from the inside out like that before, with the validation of the outside reflection. It's just a little square thing I have up on my counter that just caught the light. And so, you've taught this before of left and right, but it's like we identified that entire line like an oval front to back, and then we started to step, and automatically we could feel that line shift and then shift, but this stayed. It's like I don't think I've ever felt it before. And I know that intellectually I know it, and with physics you kind of know it. But and then the other thing of like the inverting and everting the foot and then looking at it and not being able to do it, you're right, that was kind of discombobulating. It's not really that hard to do by sensation. And that's important for me to, with my own clients too, to know that, different ways in, some can be discombobulating and some can go quite smoothly, and just kind of experiment. Which is it? Do you feel it better, or would you rather look and see it go better? Those
Perfect.
were nice.
Oh, those are some really lovely, lovely pearls. Thank you. Boy, you hit on all those key points of the lesson. And when you watch the replay, you'll see how your head had this like little tilt like this as you were moving, just right there. And it's either we think that our head is going to stay right in the center while we shift. The head does get translated, but the vertex of the head, there's actually a little tilt away from
From that side.
from that side. And we forget about that. And once we can restore that, it's just so small, but so powerful in telling the tone of the whole nervous system of your extensor tone to say, oh, I guess we don't need that. Oh, okay. All right. Good. We're free. Okay. We can let go. And if you've had experienced a lot of spinal trauma or changes, that is very, very helpful to change. So wonderful. Thank you for that share.
Mm.
Miss Susan?
Hello, Carol. Thank you so much. When we stood at the end and started to lift our heels and then to walk, it was so delightful. And as you know, having delight in walking isn't an experience I've had very often in the last 4 or 5 years. So thank you. I had this observation. We were on our stomachs, and so this comment could be helpful to anyone else who had any cramps during the muscle cramps during the experience. We were on our stomachs, our soles of our feet, knees bent, soles of the feet pointing to the ceiling. And once we lifted our heads to put our chin on the floor, I kept the chin light. But when I moved my left foot, the toes in the middle started to cramp, not the pinky toe or the big toe, but the ones in the middle. So I put my head back, forehead on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But as we worked through the left, when we changed our focus to the back of the heel,
Mm-hmm.
any potential cramping just disappeared and didn't come back. So when we were doing other interventions, I would just take the focus to the back of that heel and then it would be gone again. So that was a fascinating thing to learn about how my body works
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm. The nice self-care strategy for all of us to hear.
Yes.
Because when we put the chin in the middle, all right, as opposed to here, it changes the tilt of the head, obviously, right? So it
Yeah.
changes how the head and the cervical, that high cervical interact. So when you're here and you're making this light, if this is light, then down below somewhere has to take the ground. All right. So already you're starting to develop how you can find extension. You can find the end of the motion. That's where it's going. That's right. It's going to allow this little head tilt so that the eyes can follow the horizon line. But the cramping of the toe, when you change the focus, and that's why I gave you not just a point and flex. I want to open the front of the ankle, or I want to take the heel away. Because when you find just only one, finding the cramp, what you're coming up against is your habitual way of how that flexor tendon is organized in such a way, and you don't realize how much you're using that just in normal, everyday life, standing on that one foot and being able to walk. So when you start to release the heel away from the calf, then you have to release the extensor, the flexor, the foot muscles that curl the toe and give you the cramp, and then in between they start to change. So it is a wonderful, not not just strategy, but it's also an interpretation, so that you don't think, oh, I must need some magnesium right away, or I must need some water. I mean, you might need those things, but it might just really point to, oh, I didn't realize that you've been working for me all this time. Thank you so much. We can change our relationship. So therefore, that dysfunctional relationship of how the nervous system was firing the musculature and using your foot and allowing this center of mass to be supported over its base of support can start to change. And you felt it as a pleasurable walk.
Thank you.
God, that's exciting. Yay. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, let me just check. All right. That includes, I should tell you the name of this, right? Right. The name of this lesson is called, you're going to be surprised, no doubt, using your midline for function. Using your midline for function. Doesn't that make sense? All right. Now, Feldenkrais's name, this was originally lesson 9, and he named it tilting the legs to the center. Makes perfect sense, right? He's naming an action so that you can quickly sort on it. But when you think about what is this really doing, and this is what we're trying to do throughout the Esalen series, is that it's more than just making a movement. It's more than just flexing and bending. It's how is it going to apply to function? And the function here was about being able to walk a little bit more clearly. So, or stack a little bit more internally from your cue spontaneously rather than just an external. So as Susan says, the word midline helps my brain so much more than center, because your midline, you have an anatomical and you have a functional midline. And we want to use the midline to return to your highest level of function. Okay, there you go. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good evening, morning, or rest of your day, wherever you're at. All right, until next week. Bye-bye.